Hi everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Vlogmas. Today's video is going to be my November wrap-up. I read a few books in November, not as many as I normally do. I was kind of in a bit of a reading slump, but I did do some rereading. Before I get started, today's tea of the day, which I'm having in my lovely little donut mug from David's Tea, is Mango Madness, which is a white tea with hints of mango. I wasn't going to open it on camera because I've got a stack of books in my lap and a mug of tea in my hand, and when I tried that yesterday I spilled the first time I tried filming, so I have decided to just tell you what the tea is. It's Mango Madness today. It's quite nice. So, to get started with the books, the first one I read, something that's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and it was a buddy read, and it was Frances Burney's Evelina. I wanted to read this because I've wanted to read this for ages, because this is one of the inspirations for Jane Austen. She predates Austen. She's written a few other books, I think Cecilia and Camilla, or not Carmilla, but Camilla, I think, is one of the other ones. They both start with C, and Cecilia is definitely one of them. And she writes fantastic work. I absolutely love this. I was laughing out loud at points. This is an epistolary novel. Which can be, at the beginning, it's a bit of a drag. Like, it slows it down a bit because you're going back and forth between a couple different people and you don't know who these people are and like why they're talking about what they're talking about. But it does set the context for the book, so persevere through the first like 3 or 4 letters. And then when you get to Evelina's letters, it is fantastic. Basically, she has been raised in the country by the Reverend Villers, who is a father figure to her, and like there's some kind of mystery about her background. Like, her father has never acknowledged her, but like she's not illegitimate, so there was some conflict between her father and her mother that's never fully explained, but it is rather fantastic. And so she's been raised by this reverend in the country, and she goes to London society and just kind of, like, to use Ron Litt's words, derps her way through society, and it's pretty fantastic. There are monkeys in this, there are penis jokes, it is hilarious. I highly recommend it. It's probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more Frances Burney. She's high on my list. I need to order her other 2 books. Next up is one that I didn't fully finish, but it's a collection of short stories, so I'm still going to include it, and I read the main work in that, and that is Kate Chopin's The Awakening. This is a fairly large collection of her short stories, and I've read The Awakening, and there were a couple others that I got through. A Point at Issue, The Christ Light, and The Maid of St. Philippe. I think I'm on, like, yeah. So I got like 3 others read, but The Awakening is the main one. This was one of Claire from Reading Bukowski's favorite books of 2014, I think. And I agree with her. If you like The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, this predates it and is it touches on similar themes of a woman's right to independence, a woman's right to her own life. Very interesting. I quite enjoyed this. I think I don't know whether or not I prefer The Bell Jar or not. This is much more sequential, and it's very like, it's a chronological story, whereas The Bell Jar jumps around quite a bit. So they're two very, I mean, in the way that they are told, they're very different. In their primary message, I would say that they're very similar. So, if you like The Bell Jar, definitely check out Kate Chopin. I'm looking forward to dipping in and out of more of these short stories, but I'm not putting too much pressure on myself to like read them all at once. I think it's better to separate authors' works. The next one that I read, I'm just gonna drop those onto the floor, is one of the Penguin Little Black Classics. As those of you have known, I have had this pre-ordered, the entire box set, since last February. It finally came, and I'm really excited. It's massive. And I did read one of them last month, and that is Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This is a collection of short stories, the main one being The Yellow Wallpaper, and a lot of people recommended this to me. Also, sorry if you can hear that in the background, my washing machine is making noises. But it's definitely feminist. It's similar to Kate Chopin. It deals with the question of like a woman's identity, a woman's right to her own lifestyle, but these are slightly more gothic, so it's almost like Kate Chopin and Sylvia Plath meet Shirley Jackson. I would say. That's kind of the combination there. There is that element of the gothic and there is that element of mental instability. So I really, really enjoyed this short collection. I'm looking forward to reading more. This only had like 3 stories in it. Yellow Wallpaper was definitely my favorite, but I did enjoy the other 2, which were The Rocking Chair and Old Water. They all have this lovely little quote on the inside cover, if I can do that with one hand because I have my tea in the other, which I will read out to you. The color is hideous enough and unreliable enough and infuriating enough, but the pattern is torturing. And that is a quote from the title story, The Yellow Wallpaper. So now on to the rereads for me. And I reread 3 books this month, one of which I planned, and that is The Two Towers by J.R. Tolkien. As some of you know, I have been rereading these with Vanessa from over at Chopin, and I got through this month. We started in October. We were meant to be reading it in October, but we kind of got a little bit sidetracked and neither of us really finished it. So we finished it in November. I love this book. Oh my god. I had forgotten how much I loved it. This was the one that I struggled with, because when the narrative switch happens from Merry and Pippin and Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli and switches to Frodo and Sam, I get a bit bored. But I think now that I'm a bit older, I find it much more fascinating. This is probably it's hard to say whether or not it's my favorite, but it has a lot of elements that I really, really enjoy. Like, I really love the Rohirrim. Theoden is one of my favorite characters. It has that great scene with Faramir, who's another one of my favorite characters. It has the Ents, which are fantastic, and they never appear again, and it makes me really sad because I do love the Ents. But yeah, so I did read The Two Towers. I did try and watch the movies after I had reread it, and I couldn't. I actually couldn't. It just made me angry. I'm not a big purist. I'm not like, oh, you can't enjoy the movies if you like the books, but rereading the books and trying to watch the movies in close succession just made me angry at the movies, because there's so much less depth to the movies. The characters are so much better developed in the books. There's so much more going on, like the political intrigues and the subtleties, and it's just, books are always better, and it's gonna be a while before I'm gonna be able to watch those movies. And then I decided which I was planning to read this month, but I ended up reading last month, and that is The Return of the King by J.R. Tolkien. I actually really love these editions. They form the Tree of Gondor, which you see on the front when they're all put together. I have the box set, which is rather lovely. I was planning on reading this month, but then I realized if I do decide to read all of his Dark Materials, that's a lot to read, and this is pretty heavy, so I didn't really have anything to read. I felt like reading it, so I did. I love this book. There's not really too much to talk about it that I didn't already cover when talking about The Two Towers. I love this. I love this story. It makes me so sad at the end, and it also makes me sad that they didn't include in the movies the bits about Sharky in the Shire, without giving away too much. If you haven't read this already, also it's been out for 50 years. Get on that. It's absolutely lovely. It's a lovely story. I know it's problematic. I know that, there's not a lot of women representation, and that was brought to attention by Margaret Atwood, who claimed that there were only 3 women, if you included Shelob, which she did, but there's actually more. There are more women in this than she says, but yes, there is severe underrepresentation. It can be read slightly racist if you look at the discussion on the Black Numenorians. If you take that as literally that their skin is black as opposed to their hearts are black, which is how I interpret it, but there are some questionable race appropriation in this, but it is still a fantastic story. It is one of my favorite stories. I realize it is problematic, but I still love it. And finally, at the last minute, I decided to reread Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. Now, I was just kind of feeling like Austen. It was there were 2 more days in the month, and I'm I feel like reading something I was kind of in a bit of a bad headspace. November is always a really hard month for me. Unfortunately, my father passed away in November, so around the end of November, when it approaches the anniversary, I always struggle a bit and get a bit kind of in my own head a lot, and I felt like reading something that would take me out of it, and I decided on Northanger Abbey because I haven't read this one, I think, since the first time I read it. I haven't reread it. I have read all of Austen's works, and I read them all in relatively close succession. There's a couple that I have reread. I reread Pride and Prejudice every year. I've read Persuasion a number of times. I've reread Sense and Sensibility. But Emma, Mansfield Park, and Northanger Abbey I don't reread very often, mostly because Emma I really struggled with, same with Mansfield Park. They were kind of a bit slower for me, and I thought I didn't enjoy this one as much. I absolutely love this book. I changed it from a 4-star to a 5-star on Goodreads because I think it is fantastic. It is so hilarious. Because I'm better read now in classics, I picked up a lot more on a lot of the references that she's making, like, and mocking of other authors, and it's rather fantastic. I love it. If you haven't read Jane Austen, and if you want something that like mocks the Gothic genre, I would definitely recommend this. I'm looking forward to one of my reads in January that I have planned, which is The Female Quixote, which is kind of on a similar theme in that the heroine kind of gets really influenced by like romance, same as Catherine in this, so looking forward to that. So those are the books that I read in November. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys have read last month. If there's anything, if you guys feel like rereading, if you guys ever have like periods of time where you're kind of in a bad headspace, what do you read to get out of that? And I will see you guys tomorrow with another Vlogmas video. Bye!